You know how sometimes a story starts small? A missing person here, a strange rumor there? Well, between 2014 and 2022, something was happening in northern Texas that nobody wanted to acknowledge. 224 people just gone. No headlines screaming from newspapers, no trending hashtags, no true crime podcast picking it up. Just this quiet, creeping pattern of disappearances, all somehow connected to the same remote piece of land tucked away in the woods near the Red River border. If you drove past it, you'd probably miss it entirely. Just flat land choked with overgrowth, the kind of place your GPS might struggle to find. But ask anyone from the dying towns nearby, Walker's Edge, Caldwell Hollow, and watch their face change. They had a name for it, spoken only when they thought no one else was listening: the compound. Here's the weird part. Officially, this place didn't exist. Check the property records and you'll find it listed as private agricultural land. No business name, no religious filing, nothing that suggests anyone actually lived or worked there. But behind those tall chain-link fences, the ones topped with razor wire and dotted with ancient-looking security cameras, people were definitely going in. They just weren't coming back out. At first, nobody connected the dots. A runaway teenager in 2014, some drifter who probably moved on to the next town. These things happen, right? But by 2017, people online started noticing something unsettling. Amateur investigators on Reddit began mapping out disappearances, and they kept clustering around the same few square miles. Threads popped up with titles like Texas Hollow Missing Case Map and Walker's Edge is a Lie. The comments were what really got to me. One YouTube user wrote, "My cousin used to hike near there, gone since 2015. Cops never called us back." Another, "I grew up near that place. We never went near those woods. Those who did, they didn't stay long." What made my skin crawl wasn't just the number of missing people, it was the complete lack of response. Police departments filed reports and promptly forgot about them. State authorities showed zero interest in connecting these cases. Media outlets stayed silent. Every search effort fizzled out with the same conclusion: no signs of foul play, case inactive. It felt less like the trail went cold and more like someone had deliberately buried it. The locals? They had theories whispered over beers in dimly lit bars. Some said it was an old survivalist camp that went dark. Others swore it was a cult with beliefs so twisted that even asking questions could make you a target. But most people, they just kept their mouths shut. I found a TikTok from 2019, deleted now of course, where a local said, "Where I'm from, there's a fence you don't cross, not unless you're ready to never come back." This wasn't just about missing people anymore. It was like staring into a black hole that swallowed not just bodies, but information, evidence, even basic human curiosity. And the more you looked into it, the more you realized maybe these weren't random disappearances. Maybe someone was choosing who vanished. For almost 10 years, whatever was happening on that quiet stretch of Texas land stayed hidden, until someone stumbled across something they definitely weren't meant to find. Let me take you back to where this really started, way before anyone went missing. See, it's tempting to think this whole nightmare began in 2014, but the truth goes back much further. I spent weeks digging through old land records, and what I found made my blood run cold. In 1998, someone bought 67 acres of Texas scrubland through a company called RC Holding Group, LLC. Ever try to research a shell company? It's like chasing smoke. This one was registered to a P.O. box in Boise, Idaho. No CEO, no employees, no stated purpose, just a name on paper and a chunk of land nobody seemed to want. The seller was a local rancher who, according to a comment I found on an archived news site, practically gave the land away, sold it for a quarter of its value, and left Texas 3 weeks later. Never came back. The new owners, they never showed their faces. Everything was handled through lawyers and middlemen. By 2001, things started getting strange. Locals driving past began noticing changes. First came the fences, not your typical ranch fencing, but serious chain-link barriers topped with razor wire. Private property, keep out signs appeared every 10 feet, like they really wanted to drive the point home. Then came the night deliveries, trucks with blacked-out plates bringing in shipping containers, construction equipment, industrial-grade lighting. Here's where it gets really weird. They ran power lines to the property, but never registered with the utility company. I tracked down a power company manager who agreed to talk anonymously in 2021. His exact words still give me chills. It was the only property we couldn't account for on the grid, but someone was using juice. A lot of it. Officially, nothing ever got built there. No permits filed, no zoning changes, no business licenses. But if you looked at satellite images from 2003, I found them on an old web archive, you could see structures appearing. Long modular buildings arranged in perfect rows. No cars in sight. No crops growing. No cattle grazing. Just these sterile geometric shapes in the middle of nowhere. That's when the stories started circulating through hunting forums and late-night radio shows. People talked about monthly gatherings, always during the full moon, always involving armed groups. A trucker posted anonymously in 2008. I'll never forget this. Saw maybe 20 people, all in gray. No emotion, no talking, just digging. Looked like kids. It wasn't right. You'd think law enforcement would investigate, right? Wrong. County sheriffs claimed they never received complaints about the property, but I found multiple Reddit users who swore they'd filed reports about everything from trespassing to strange ceremonies. Every time they got the same response, nothing on file for that address. One user going by Rapper Ruins shared something that made me close my laptop for the night. When I tried to send in drone footage to local PD, they told me to delete it. Next day I got a call from an out-of-state number warning me to drop it. There's one name that keeps surfacing in all this. Jameson Cole, supposedly a former Army engineer who worked on black site construction overseas. I couldn't find any official records linking him to Texas property, but his name appears in military rosters, background check leaks, and most disturbingly in a blurry photo from something called the RCS program, active between 2002 and 2009. RCS stood for Redemptive Conditioning Sanctuary. The location, Northwest Texas. Was this what the compound really was? Some kind of conditioning experiment? A cult hiding behind military discipline? Or just an armed group so paranoid they built their own private fortress? Whatever they were building out there, it wasn't random. It wasn't spontaneous. This was planned, methodical, deliberate. And if the construction was planned, then maybe the disappearances were too. The first person to vanish didn't seem special. That's the thing about patterns. You don't see them until you're looking back. On June 17, 2014, Lana Rodriguez was hitchhiking near County Road 6712, 19 years old, college dropout, the kind of free spirit who documented everything. She was about 7 miles from what locals would later call the fence when she simply disappeared. 2 days later, a hiker found her backpack snagged in a dead tree 300 feet from the road. Everything was still inside. Phone, wallet, even her travel journal. The last entry was half finished, mid-sentence, like she'd been interrupted. Police called it voluntary abandonment. Her sister called it impossible. Lana had texted her every single day for 3 years, until she didn't. No tire tracks, no signs of struggle, no witnesses, just another missing poster that would yellow and fade on telephone poles. Looking back, though, Lana was patient zero. The first thread in a web that would silently expand for 8 years. By March 2015, 3 more people had vanished within 15 miles of the compound. A nature blogger documenting abandoned places, a man living in his van, traveling state to state, a woman who disappeared during a bus transfer, just stepped off in one town and never got on in the next. None of them knew each other. All their cases were stamped with the same phrase: person voluntarily missing, no foul play suspected. By 2017, the number had jumped to 22. That's when people online started noticing something disturbing. The victims all had something in common. They were disconnected, homeless, traveling alone, estranged from family, between jobs, the kind of people who could disappear for days or weeks before anyone raised an alarm, the kind of people society doesn't keep close tabs on. A Redditor named You Shine My Ashes put together what they called the Northern Fade pattern. They mapped out every disappearance and found they all happened within a crescent-shaped corridor around the compound. Even creepier, private investigators hired by desperate families discovered that victims' phones all stopped pinging near the same mile marker on Route 53. The data just ended, like they'd driven off the edge of the digital world. One forum user wrote something that still haunts me. Have you seen how many people the police report as mental health vagrants? Easy to dismiss, easy to forget. Now ask yourself, how many of those were actually on the edge of that land? Simarin was the worst year. 41 people reported missing within 25 miles of the site, 4 times higher than the state average for rural areas. Some barely made the local news. Others never appeared outside missing persons databases. Search efforts got smaller each year. Families who pushed for investigations hit walls of bureaucracy. No evidence to declare criminal investigation. No probable cause for area search. I found a leaked internal memo on Pastebin that made my stomach turn. It said, "Subject disappeared near high-risk land. Infiltration not advised." But what really gets me is the silence. Not one law enforcement department, not one, ever publicly acknowledged how strange this pattern was. No press conferences, no town halls. The victims just faded from public memory like they'd never existed. That's when you realize this wasn't random. Someone knew exactly who to target. The vulnerable, the isolated, the ones no system was designed to protect. Because when you erase people who already live in the margins, who's going to notice they're gone? Only the families, and the few people still asking questions. Try asking someone from northern Red County about the compound directly and watch what happens. Their eyes shift. Maybe they laugh nervously or suddenly remember somewhere they need to be. But catch the right person at the right time. Maybe after a few drinks, maybe when they're feeling brave. And the stories start spilling out. Not the whole truth, never that, just fragments, whispers, warnings. Ellis Danvers lived near Walker's Edge his whole life. Drove trucks for 40 years, knew every back road like his own heartbeat. In 2018, he gave an interview that's since been scrubbed from the internet, but I found a transcript. He said, "Every Thursday night, no matter the season, you'd hear humming, not mechanical, human, long stretched-out tones, like 100 people chanting but deep. We used to call it the Howl Choir. Scared my dogs half to death." Other locals, especially hunters with land bordering the property, told similar stories. They'd see lights moving in perfect formation, not like vehicles, more like torches or signals, evenly spaced in patterns that made no sense. More than one person mentioned hearing what sounded like gunshots, followed by absolute silence. Not even crickets afterward, just dead air. But the really disturbing stories, those came from people who got too curious. I found old posts in private Facebook groups from people whose drones got fried the second they crossed the property line. One woman described how her drone's auto-return feature just failed. The feed showed it descending, then nothing but static. Another guy said his trail cam caught a line of figures in matching uniforms crossing his family's ranch at 3 a.m. When he went to check the footage the next morning, the memory card was blank. The camera wasn't even connected to Wi-Fi. Then there's the story of Third Eye Sky, a YouTuber who claimed he made it 500 yards past the tree line in 2020. He lasted 10 minutes before he heard footsteps, organized, deliberate, closing in from 4 directions. No shouting, no flashlights, just the sound of movement, getting closer. He said he ran like he'd never run before. Less than a month later, his entire channel vanished. But I found archived Reddit posts where he'd written, "They knew I was there. I didn't hear them. I felt them. And they didn't want to scare me off. They wanted me to stay." An elderly woman from Caldwell Hollow left a comment under a viral video about the disappearances. "It's been deleted, but I screenshotted it. We always knew not to. Call the police. You learn when you're young. You don't look at that fence. You don't talk about who lives in there. Town council never did. Even the pastor never spoke the word aloud. Ain't superstition. It's survival." The way law enforcement acted was just as telling. One family whose son vanished in 2017 told me the sheriff wouldn't even enter the woods when they mentioned the coordinates. His exact words, "That stretch is trouble. If he's in there, He chose to be. Their son had no connection to any cult or militia, but his last GPS ping was on a fire road leading straight to the compound's back entrance. Why the silence? Was it fear? Were local authorities in on it? Or was there some unspoken agreement to keep things quiet? See, in places like this, silence isn't just keeping your mouth shut. It's a survival mechanism, because everyone knew the rules, even if nobody said them out loud. Watch the fence. Don't go near it. Don't ask questions. And whatever you do, don't go looking for the missing. The message was crystal clear, and it worked. For years it worked. For years that compound was untouchable, a black hole of information protected by fear, fences, and whatever influence kept authorities at bay. But in late 2020, technology finally broke through where people couldn't. There was this small YouTube channel, Dark Roads Truth, maybe 6,000 subscribers, the kind of channel that explored abandoned malls and local ghost stories. But their video from November 2020 changed everything. The title was simple, TX Restricted Zone, No-Fly Space Broken. What they captured still makes me sick to think about. The footage started normally enough. Aerial views of overgrown fields, a few scattered buildings painted to blend with the dirt, nothing that screamed danger, but then the drone swept over the eastern section of the property, and that's when viewers saw them. Those perfectly spaced disturbances in the earth, rectangular mounds, uniform in size, arranged in a grid pattern. Dozens of them. The internet went insane. People enhanced the footage, zoomed in, measured pixels. Skeptics said it was just erosion patterns or covered storage, but veterans who'd seen mass burial sites in combat zones, they recognized the pattern immediately. One commented, "I've seen this before. This is how you hide bodies when you've got too many to deal with individually." The drone made 3 passes. On the third, the feed started breaking up with static. The video cut off mid-flight. Within 48 hours, Dark Roads Truth's entire channel was gone. Not demonetized, not suspended, completely erased. Every video, every comment, every trace that they'd ever existed. But this is the internet age. Nothing truly disappears. Mirror copies started surfacing on obscure forums and archive sites. A Redditor called Lockdown Feral went frame by frame and counted 42 visible mounds in just one section. Others used the GPS data to estimate the full scope, potentially 200-plus disturbed areas across the visible property. Some of the formations even seemed to form crude grids, spaced with the kind of precision you'd see in military cemeteries. Experts in photogrammetry weighed in with alternative theories, old bunkers, utility lines, water storage, but the timing was too coincidental. The video dropped exactly 1 week after Craig Hensley, a 38-year-old from Dallas, told friends he was going camping, off-grid near Walker's Edge. His last Instagram post showed a fence, razor wire, the edge of a field that looked exactly like the one in the drone footage. 2 days after Hensley disappeared, something even stranger happened. Google Earth updated their satellite imagery of the area for the first time in years, but instead of clearer pictures, the entire compound was blurred out. Not pixelated like sensitive military sites, just wiped clean like someone had taken a digital eraser to it. Users who tried to access historical imagery through third-party archives got the same message. Access restricted. Can I prove those mounds were graves? No, there were no excavations, no official investigations, no ground-penetrating radar studies, but that grainy drone footage lives on in the darker corners of the internet, keeping one question alive. Is this where they put the missing? And if even one of those mounds contains human remains, then we're not talking about a mystery anymore. We're talking about a mass murder site hidden in plain sight, protected by some force powerful enough to scrub it from satellite feeds and silence anyone who gets too close. After everything we've covered, the land, the victims, the silence, we're left with the question that nobody in authority seems willing to ask. Who was running this place? No names on deeds, no corporate filings, no public faces. But if you listened to locals long enough, one name kept surfacing, always whispered: Jameson Cole. The stories were remarkably consistent. Military bearing, never smiled, always in dark, unmarked uniforms. The kind of presence that made grown men look away. According to deep web forums and leaked documents, Cole was ex-military, specifically a contractor who worked on psychological operations in the years after 9/11. His name appears in declassified contractor lists from 2006 under something called Abstract Technical Fieldwork, Remote Behavior Conditioning. Then, in 2009, he vanished from official records right around the time he was being investigated for unauthorized experiments in a defense-funded behavioral program. Never charged, never tried, just gone. But he wasn't really gone, was he? In 2018, a private investigator hired by a desperate family found something that made my skin crawl. Abandoned in a mobile unit near the compound's woods were pamphlets, like twisted yearbooks. They showed children, maybe 8 to 10 years old, in gray uniforms with shaved heads, standing in perfect formation, dead eyes, no smiles. The title read, Redemptive Conditioning Sanctuary, Cohort G. The logo was a cross surrounded by barbed wire. That name, Redemptive Conditioning Sanctuary, matched references in FOIA requests from the early 2000s. They described a program for rebuilding compromised youth through discipline and doctrine. One Reddit user who claimed to have served under Cole in the military wrote something I can't forget. He wasn't trying to fix kids, he was trying to erase personality, to start over with clean slates. Think doctrine, not therapy. Think programming, not healing. Every photo that surfaced showed Cole the same way. Black cap, sunglasses, surrounded by rows of people in uniform. But they weren't saluting a flag. They were saluting him directly. A podcast in 2020 quoted an unnamed source. Jameson believed the world didn't need governments anymore. It needed order. Order imposed by those who could withstand chaos. He wanted to build a new society, quietly, efficiently, without interference. Was Cole a rogue Black Ops handler turned cult leader? Was he a true believer in some twisted ideology? Or was he just a convenient boogeyman, a name to explain the unexplainable? Here's what we know for sure. The compound wasn't random. It was methodical, funded, organized. Someone was paying for those buildings, that security, those operations. Someone was selecting victims. Someone was keeping authorities at bay. And whoever they were, they had the resources and connections to make 224 people disappear without leaving a trace, without triggering investigations, without anyone in power asking questions. Until 2022, when everything changed. For 8 years, the compound operated in shadows. Then, in the pre-dawn hours of November 18, 2022, the silence shattered. Residents within 10 miles reported helicopters, black, unmarked, flying low enough to rattle windows. The roads filled with SUVs moving fast, no lights, no sirens. There was no announcement, no press release, no official acknowledgement. But people were watching, and in the age of smartphones, people were recording. A Reddit post that lasted maybe 2 hours showed grainy photos of tactical teams breaching the compound's fence line. Another user claimed to hear controlled explosions. Soft charges, they called them. Clean entry, not destruction. Someone who said they worked county dispatch posted that all emergency services got federal override orders that morning. Stand down, redirect, maintain radio silence. Everything pointed to one conclusion. The FBI, or some federal agency, had finally moved on the compound. Within 72 hours, the area was locked down tighter than ever. New satellite imagery showed nothing. The compound had been digitally scrubbed from Google Earth again. Roads were blocked with official-looking barriers citing flood remediation zone, do not enter. Locals confirmed what everyone suspected. There had been no flooding. Then came the digital purge. Researchers who'd spent years documenting the compound found their files corrupted, cloud storage wiped, entire websites offline. FOIA requests mentioning RC Holding Group LLC came back with denials citing national security implications, a classification rarely used for domestic cases. The most chilling account came from a whistleblower on 4chan who claimed to have seen classified documents from Operation Sanctum Silence. According to them, 42 bodies were recovered from the site, most in advanced decomposition, no public identification, no media notification. The remains were allegedly transported to an undisclosed federal pathology facility and sealed under permanent investigative status. Hours after that post, the entire thread vanished. The account was deleted, but screenshots survive, including his final words. "If you think they buried something, you're right. But it wasn't just the bodies. It was the truth." By 2023, researchers trying to access property records found something that should terrify everyone. Entire sections of the county database had been wiped between 2019 and 2022. Not just the compound's files, entire chains of property records just gone. Officials blamed a cybersecurity failure. The timing was beyond suspicious. To this day, the FBI has never acknowledged any operation near Walker's Edge. No press releases, no statements. The only proof something happened is an air traffic control log showing authorized low-altitude flights in the exact area on that exact morning, listed under a program code that doesn't appear in any federal registry. So what was this place? A cult that got too big? A black site that went rogue? A domestic experiment that finally crossed too many lines? Whatever it was, help came too late for 224 people, and now not only are they gone, so is any evidence they ever existed. Drive past the compound today, and you'll see empty land, no fences gleaming in the sun, no trucks kicking up dust. Satellite feeds show nothing but overgrowth reclaiming whatever was built there. It looks abandoned, forgotten. But places like this don't just fade away, they leave scars on the land, on the people, on the very air. So what really happened behind those fences? The theories are as numerous as they are terrifying. Some investigators believe it was a continuation of MK Ultra-style programs, officially discontinued but secretly evolved. The victims weren't random. They were test subjects chosen for their vulnerability, their invisibility in the system. Others insist it was religious. That redemptive conditioning sanctuary name suggests indoctrination, not experimentation. Locals who glimpsed the compound's residents described them as hollow-eyed, moving in perfect synchronization. Not like prisoners, like believers, like people waiting for something. The darkest theory suggests it was all of the above, a convergence of extremist ideology, psychological manipulation, and paramilitary training. A petri dish for creating something new and terrible, funded by shadowy interests and protected by strategic corruption. But theories don't bring back the dead. 224 people vanished, no bodies returned to families, no graves to visit, no closure, just absence, just questions, just the terrible knowledge that sometimes people disappear and nobody with power cares enough to find them. The land may be quiet, but the stories persist. Last year, a hiker swore he saw flames rising from where the compound used to be. Another reported being followed by 3 figures along the old fence line, silent, matching his pace, disappearing the moment he turned to confront them. Wildlife biologists note that animals still avoid the area. It's like a dead zone, one told a podcast. No birds nest there. Deer won't graze. It's as if nature itself remembers. Maybe it's trauma, maybe it's something else. But what truly terrifies me isn't the supernatural angle, it's the human one. No law enforcement agency has reopened these cases. No federal investigation has been announced. Despite thousands of messages from families, petitions with tens of thousands of signatures, and constant pressure from online communities, the official response remains silence. It's as if those 224 people never existed. As if their family's pain doesn't matter, as if whatever happened on that compound is better left buried. But families still mourn without bodies, locals still whisper warnings, and the internet remembers what it's not supposed to. If 1 person was taken, it would be a tragedy. If 10 vanished, it would be a crisis. But 224? That's not random. That's not coincidence. That's systematic. Whatever happened in that compound didn't end when the buildings came down. It continues in the silence of authorities, in the fear of locals, in the grief of families who will never know what happened to their loved ones. So I leave you with this. What kind of place can swallow 224 people and leave no trace? What kind of power can make evidence disappear as easily as the victims? And perhaps most disturbing of all, if it happened once in one remote corner of Texas, where else might it be happening right now? The compound is gone, but the questions remain. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if that's exactly what someone wanted, for us to be left with nothing but questions, forever wondering, forever afraid of what might be hiding behind the next fence we're told not to cross.